There comes a time in the history of nations when fear and complacency allow power to accumulate and liberty and privacy to suffer. That time is now, and I will not let the Patriot Act, the most unpatriotic of acts, go unchallenged.
Hope he had some comfy shoes. He was there a while, right? Welcome back to MidPoint. I'm Rick Blackwell in for Ed Berliner. Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul spoke for almost 11 hours earlier this week denouncing the Patriot Act, the controversial 9/11 era law. Meanwhile, 6 Baltimore police officers are indicted in the case of Freddie Gray's death, and the U.S. pressures the European Union to drop pesticide laws as part of the developing transatlantic trade and investment partnership trade deal. Where do we go from here? Let's welcome in our panel. Joining me now, journalism adjunct for Seton Hall University, Dorian Davis, and president of the M Network Branding and Strategy, Thom Mozloom. Welcome to you both. Dorian, an ACLU poll out this week found Americans want to end the Patriot Act by a 2-to-1 margin. Senator Paul's presidential campaign has been stalling lately. Is this a winning issue for the Kentucky senator?
I think it might be. You know, a lot of things happened in the fallout to 9/11, like the establishment of Homeland Security, like the Patriot Act, that have proven to be a little less effective than we thought they might be. A new report from the Inspector General at the Justice Department, for instance, has the FBI admitting that the spying program authorized by the Patriot Act has not helped them crack any cases. And I think people are becoming more aware of its failure.
Well, Thom, it looks like the House approved modifications to the Patriot Act. What kind of changes are we likely to see with how the NSA monitors our phone calls?
Well, I think you're going to look to mollify people who are very, very tense about being spied on. I think that from a messaging standpoint, the government is going to have to do 2 things. They're going to have to, one, say that this is successful and then define success. And they're going to have to assuage some fears that people have that the government is spying on them night and day and collecting information, violating privacy. I think you're going to see modifications along the lines of a more libertarian bent, saying that the government's going to get out of your pants with this, and this. But I think the metadata issue is still going to be there.
All right, let's move on. The grand jury confirms the charges against those 6 Baltimore officers in the death of Freddie Gray. Those charges focus on how Gray was treated in custody. Dorian, I'm going to start with you. Any surprises here?
No. You know, there's that old saying that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich, and it's definitely a development in the story. Is it surprising? No. And you have to remember, a grand jury only hears evidence from the prosecutor, not the defense. A grand jury can hear any evidence, almost any evidence, that might be excluded in a trial, and a grand jury does not have to be unanimous. So I don't think this tells us a lot about what the verdict of a trial might be.
Thom, heard some interesting facts today concerning Baltimore, the murder rate actually going up since this whole situation started. Where do you see this city right now? Are you concerned that maybe the police officers are not policing as hard as they once were because of what happened to Freddie Gray?
No, I think what's happening is that the city is very, very tense, and it's tense along racial lines. The indictments that came down today aren't going to do this any favor because they're not explained the way Dorian just explained them. The way they should be explained is these don't mean conviction. And I really have a sense of trepidation should this come out that some of these guys don't get convicted. I think there's a lot of people that are looking for convictions and are going to be disappointed, and then there's going to be rioting in the streets again. I think they really need to be very careful how they message this and how they communicate what exactly the indictment means and why it's happening.
We're going to have to wait and see on that in the months to come, but obviously a big challenge right there for Baltimore city officials. The European Union had looked to ban 31 pesticides, fearing that they could cause cancer and male infertility, but that ban shelved after pressure from the U.S. in order to secure a trade deal. Dorian, talk about this a little bit. The United States actually the one making the European Union drop these pesticide laws.
Well, anytime you have studies, first of all, that reveal that there are adverse health effects to X and Y and Z chemical, you have to first of all know what is the prevalence of those. You know, are these adverse health effects in 0.0001% of cases or in 30% of cases? I don't know that, and I suspect the government doesn't either. But also, this is just politics. You know, in politics, you have to concede a smaller issue sometimes in order to agree on a bigger issue. And I think the pesticide is the smaller issue and the trade deal is the bigger one.
And Thom, do you have concerns that it's the U.S. that's making the EU drop these pesticide laws?
I don't have a lot of concerns about this. I think that it's good to have these discussions and negotiations across the table for fair trade. If you don't have these types of discussions, you're never going to come to some type of standard by which people can trade goods and services across continents and between countries and within regions. And I think it's an important part of the economic process to bring global trade to a more efficient and better means between countries.
Thom Mozloom, Dorian Davis, they're going to join us for another segment. We're going to stay in Europe. France forcing supermarkets to donate unsold food to charity. Good idea or bad idea? Back with Dorian and Thom. The arena continues next on MidPoint. I'm Rick Blackwell in for Ed Berliner. Welcome back to MidPoint. I'm Rick Blackwell in for Ed Berliner. Rejoining me is journalism adjunct for Seton Hall University, Dorian Davis, and president for M Network Branding and Strategy, Thom Mozloom. Welcome back to you both. Well, the French government mandating to some of the supermarkets there that they have to give some of their excess food to the poor. We've got some wonderful programs in the United States, but they're all voluntary programs where they actually pick up food at restaurants and grocery stores. What do you think about this, Thom? Should it be mandated? Is that a way to solve maybe the hunger problem in the United States?
Well, not in the United States. I mean, you know, France is a socialist country, and it's a little bit different run. In America, giving away food to the hungry is probably a really good business practice if you're a supermarket. It's probably a really great thing to market and tell people that you do. It's probably the right thing to do. But I get a little tense whenever we talk about mandating charity. That is, well, that's just another tax, isn't it?
Well, Dorian, I guess my other concern would be also that, you know, could be expired food. We're such a society that has always have so many lawsuits in this nation that there would be concerns about, you know, lawsuits that somebody got sick. Would that be a concern? And just what's your overall impression?
Well, that would be a concern. I'm not so sure that this is expired food that we're talking about so much as food that's past its best buy date. And if that's the case, then the food is still edible. Also, it's not all for eating by the poor. As I understand it, some of it is going to be repurposed or would be repurposed as food for animals. But look, obviously food waste is a problem around the world. We throw out about 30 million tons of food a year in the U.S., and that's up about 20% from the year 2000. So this is something that I think is good for France and probably good for America as well.
So, Thom, just to be clear, it should be mandated as a choice in France, or do you think that the French government is in their rights to do this?
Well, it's the French government. I mean, obviously their government runs different than our government. In America, I don't think you should be forcing businesses into charity, just like you shouldn't force individuals to be charitable. People should be charitable. It's good business to be charitable. It's the right thing to do, but it's easier to change people's legislation than change their hearts, and I think we should be in the business of changing their hearts.
The momentum of gay marriage continues across the globe. The latest nation is Ireland. The polls close in that nation in the next hour or so. We should know some results maybe in the next couple of hours. They're having this referendum, and what's amazing, if the amendment passes, Ireland will become the first country to legalize same-sex civil marriage by popular vote. Dorian, if you were to say the first nation in the world, would you have ever believed that it was Ireland that's leading the way?
I would not have believed that. Ireland is about 80% Catholic. The Catholic Church, as we know, opposes gay marriage, at least at the leadership level. One thing to note is that Catholics in America support gay marriage about 55% to 45%, and it sounds like Irish Catholicism is headed in that direction also. But I think this is indicative also of a bigger movement that's going on in the world. 10 years ago here in the United States, the Republicans put gay marriage bans on the ballot to bolster George W. Bush. That's unthinkable today.
And Thom, don't you think at some point politicians would love this, that it would take the issue out of their hands and just put it up to a popular vote?
Well, I think it would sort of alleviate some concern from politicians, but it would also take away a great wedge item that they get lots of votes on. I think having people argue back and forth about gay marriage gets people elected. And I think if you see what's going on in the popular vote, especially in Ireland, I think you see a nuanced vote. I think if you talk to Catholics, and as Dorian said, a majority of Catholics say, yeah, why not? Let's have gay marriage. But if you talk to those same Catholics and say, and now they should be able to get married in a Catholic church by a Catholic priest, I think you're going to find a different number. And I think that's what you're seeing the vote happen. I don't think the religious people in America care one way or the other whether gay marriage can happen or not. But I think once you step into their church and say gay marriage can happen and must happen in your church, well, I think you're going to get some different results and you're going to have a different conversation going on.
All right, a lot of people traveling over the holiday weekend. We had a man in North Carolina, I believe, that got bumped from a flight at the Charlotte airport. So upset, he strips naked. There should be some law against this, right, Dorian?
Well, I couldn't tell if he was stripping because he was upset or if he was making the TSA's job easier for them.
I thought you said take off your shoes.
But I imagine there are laws against this, some kind of indecency law or something. But I don't know how effective that protest was.
Dorian, I heard differently. I heard he was a knight in shining armor, and that was the only way he could get through the metal detector. No, listen, the cops did the right thing, actually. They said that he was off his meds, he was having some kind of episode, so they didn't arrest him. They brought him to the hospital. They treated him with kid-glove care, and while there are laws against public nudity...
Thom, I'm going to jump in. We got to run. We're going to leave it with the naked man. Okay, thank you so much. Dorian Davis, Thom Mozloom. Thanks so much. The Political Punching Bag, next.